All right, welcome everyone. Another Friday, another Beauj video. We are in the final third of Beauj Box. This is tasting number 9. So we're tasting this guy today. This should look pretty familiar for a lot of you veterans. We've featured Nicolas Chemarin many times. In fact, we've featured Nicolas Chemarin. It's the only producer that I feature every single year that I've done Beauj Box. So yeah, I fucking love this his wine. Anyways, we're tasting 2017 Nicolas Chemarin MC2 Morgon is what we're tasting today. Yeah, super excited. I love his wines. It's probably one of my favorites. It's been a lot of people's favorites for so long, but every year, without a doubt, it just gets, it's so good. It's delicious. It's exactly kind of stuff that I love from Beaujolais. Anyways, let's start. You guys will all have a map. You know, at this point, you have France. You have Beaujolais map. You know where Beaujolais is. If you look at that Beaujolais map, we're Morgon. So where were we last week? Schuhubel. Okay, really hard word to pronounce, but we were there last week, and then now are moving into Morgon. Probably the most famed, probably most well-known, one of the most well-known, if not the most well-known crews of them all. It is the second largest crew of them all, only after Beauj being the largest, which is the last one on that kind of orange area if you look at the Beaujolais map. But it is perhaps the most celebrated and the most well-known cruise, probably because it's the birthplace of the modern-day natural wine movement, which all started with Beaujolais. The gang of 4 Beaujolais producers, they were all Morgon producers. Again, not saying that there were other producers who were kind of subscribing to this philosophy of less chemical farming, less intervention, and making the wines that their grandparents used to make. But these 4 were the kind of the first 4 that really got introduced to the world, particularly the U.S., because Kermit Lynch, the eponymous importer of Kermit Lynch, started importing these 4 guys in. And we haven't said their names yet, so it's Marcel Lapierre, Jean Foillard, Guy Breton, and Jean-Paul Thévenet. So those 4 guys were the kind of known as the gang of 4, and they were all Morgon producers. So since then, Morgon has been kind of on people's radar ever since. What makes Morgon unique? You obviously have the soil map. You'll see that kind of salmon red colors. That's obviously granite, pink granite. That's everywhere, right? But if you look at the bottom right of Morgon, it changes. The kind of red goes away, and now you get green, dark green, and pink, and all of that. And that's where Côte de Pie is. In case, and if you are, most of you veterans are probably familiar with this Côte de Pie. We featured Côte de Pie last year. But it is considered one of the best vineyards, not only in Morgon, but probably all of Beaujolais. And again, what makes Morgon special is that presence of volcanic soil that runs through. It's not just Côte de Pie. Côte de Pie itself is a mountain. It's a Mont Pie, which means a mountain, Pie mountain. The Chara, which is a volcanic mountain. But all throughout Morgon, there's a percentage and the varying degrees of volcanic soil that kind of runs around. So it's mostly majority still granite, even the rest of outside of Côte de Pie, but there's a bit of a volcanic running through, and that's what makes this whole crew as a whole different, unique, and it's what caused them to make some of the densest Beaujolais of them all. It's also why Morgon is considered one of the most age-worthy kind of crews of them all. So all 4 members of Gang of 4 that I mentioned, they all make wines from Côte de Pie. Many other producers also make wines from Côte de Pie. But so if you've never tried Côte de Pie, I recommend you getting out there and seeking one out. But outside of that, just know that that kind of volcanic soil, which is really rich in iron content, makes the wines kind of suffer, right? Struggle to grow. Plus all the vineyards here are facing all south and southeast, which means a ton of sunlight. So no problem with the ripening on top of this rich iron content really infertile soil that makes the wines struggle, having to dig deep into the ground to find nutrients and water. All those things to say it makes wines that are really amazing ripeness, as well as on top of strong minerality due to the volcanic soil and the granite and the schist and all those things that are in there, which means it's going to be more complex as well. So all of that is what makes Morgon a very appealing place to make Beaujolais. Morgon usually displays much darker fruit character, and you'll definitely see that when we get to tasting it today, rather than kind of that bright red fruit that you see from a lot of the other crus or northern crus. So yeah, just know if you are ever approaching Morgon, obviously there are outliers and different things. Obviously also depends on how much carbonic is put on the wine, but in general, Morgon, the expression of Gamay on Morgon tends to be much darker and deeper and blacker. Okay. All right, who makes this? Talked about Nicolas Chemarin. You've heard, if you've been with me in the Beauj box, you've heard his name many times. You will have all these pictures in the Google Drive folder. But only producer to have featured every year in Beauj box for 5 years, right? I just love his wines. It's everything that I kind of look for in the wine. It's like perfectly imperfect, right? Kind of like tilts the line between is this wine faulty? But no, but like he plays with it. It's beautiful. I just love his wine. This is a repeat. We've had his MC2. So we have the MC2. 2 years ago, I believe 3 years ago we had his Courcelette single vineyard wine. That was a banger. He makes it very small. I think we only got 7 cases in US all together, and then we picked up 4 of them. We picked up more than half of it. So again, don't say I've never done anything for you. And then we've featured his brewery last year, and then we have his MC2 this year. He also makes wines in Régnier. Most of his family holdings are actually. So, anyways, the MC2 we featured this in the very first Beauj box, Beauj box 1. So it's making a comeback in Beauj box 5, which is pretty exciting. Very small amount of wine he makes. His family holding is only about 5 hectares. Most of it is actually in Beaujolais Village, just on the western side, that purple area if you look at the Beauj map. But he does have a small holdings in Régnier, Brewery, and Morgon. And this year we're featuring his Morgon. It's a 4th generation farmer, very small, very family oriented. He always been one of my favorite, like I mentioned, every year. He's the only male member of his family. By the way, he never went to school, and he just learned from his father, stayed in the family. He's the only one in his family to have stayed in this tiny little village called Marchamp. And there's a picture of the village of Marchamp in there. It's a tiny little town. If you ever get a chance to get out there, it's pretty awesome. It's a very little town. The vineyards are super steep. You should go check it out. But anyways, so he's the only member of his generation, male member of his generation, to have stayed in the tiny little village of Marchamp, his hometown. Everybody else left for larger cities, and they said, "Dad, Mom, I'm not making wine. I don't want to do that." But he decided to stick around and make wine. His town is surrounded by local forest with a heavy owl population. So this gained him a nickname of Petit Groby, which is also the name of his brewery bottling, which we featured last year. That's a local term of endearment for small hollows in the trees where the owls live and sleep. So it's called Petit Groby, and if you ever go to this town, everybody calls it Petit Groby. His dad, Lucien, was the first one in his family to move the family farm away from polyculture to fully concentrate his activities on vineyards and winemaking. And then now Nicolas, as a 4th generation winemaker, carries on the family tradition. So he's been making wine. His family's been making wine for a while from this little village. Really understands the terroir of Beaujolais. All of his wines, whether it be Régnier, Morgon, or Brewery, they all kind of have very hallmark what you expect from those crus. But at the same time, they all have this common thread of Nicolas Chemarin touch on it, which we'll talk about when we're tasting it. But he's got this like a rustic beauty about his wines through all of them. So yeah, it's super fun to kind of taste through Beaujolais through his wines. I'm also including pictures of him stomping down concrete vat, grapes in concrete vat, and then as well as a picture of himself, as well as the old barrel where this wine is aged, and a picture of Marchand. So what is this wine? This is he has small holdings in Morgon, vineyards of Charme and Courcelette. Charme I could not find on the Morgon Beaujolais soil map, but you guys all have access to it. But if you look in that Bourgogne soil map, there's a circle up on top with a domain Montchavy circled around the vineyard or Ludi of Courcelette in there. So I looked at every single one of them. Maybe I missed it. If you guys find it, let me know. But I found Courcelette, but I could not find Charme. But anyways, Nicolas has a very small holdings in Charme and Courcelette. And Courcelette, time to time, it's not every year, but some vintages when the conditions are right, he actually makes that into a single vineyard, single Ludi bottling, which is what we featured 3 years ago. But he blends, instead of producing two different cuvées in tiny amounts, he blends Charme and Courcelette together and makes a regional or cru-wide Morgon cuvées, which he names MC2, because it's kind of playing on where you get it, like Charme, Courcelette, they both start with C, MC squared, not MC2, MC squared, gives you so much energy, right? That's the formula for Einstein's theory of relativity, all of that. Anyways, MC square, it comes from the fact that this is a blend of two different Ludi vineyards, Charme and Courcelette, that starts with letter C. This is 100% Gamay, all organic, sustainably grown, more than 40 years old, all hand harvested. If you ever go visit him, his vineyards are super steep, so you can't really machine harvest anything. Whole cluster fermentation, i.e. semi-carbonic, in concrete for 20 days, and then 40% of the wines get aged in neutral oak for 10 months. So there's a bit of a oxidative effect that obviously takes the edges off, right? Putting it in barrels, and then putting it for 10 months. So yeah, there's a bit of an age on this thing as well. And then it gets bottled unfiltered, unfined, with a small dose of sulfites, and he bottles according to the lunar cycle. Whether, again, that affects the wine or not, you be your own judge. But yeah, he farms according to the lunar cycle. He's not. He's a biodynamic practicing. He's not certified, but he also bottles his wines according to the lunar cycle. All right, let's get to tasting wine. Another thing that I thought was really fun with this wine is that his particular Morgon is always he pulls it back quite a bit. So this is 2017, right? We're in 2025. So there's been 8 years of aging on this. So as we're tasting through this, keep in your mind that this is 8 years old. And to me, there's still unbelievable amount of freshness and primary fruit left on here. I would say actually this is still very much primary fruit driven wine, which is after 8 years that is holding on to this much, just goes to show that Beaujolais can age, not just Beaujolais, but Morgon, particularly when made well, can age, and this still has plenty of life left in there. So, and we'll get to talking about this when we get to the pricing. But yeah, his wines are always really, really reasonably priced, and I'll tell you what I think about it when we get there. But yeah, so good bottles, probably pick up a few, lay down, and come back to it. Yeah, so let's go tasting it. All right, appearance. All right, I'm gonna call this wine clear, but you can tell this is not filtered, right? It's not translucent. Yeah, this wine is not filtered, but it's clear. I'm gonna call this actually deep. I can't really see much right through the middle. So deep, ruby with a. I would still say this is majority still ruby, but you can definitely tell, especially towards the edge. If you tilt the wine glass down like this, sing it across the meniscus, right? The edges. You can tell there's a bit of garnet starting to come in. There's a little bit of like orangey, like brown hue starting to come in. So yeah, I'm gonna say ruby with garnet starting to set in, which is, if I was on an exam setting, this would be like a signal to people that, you know, there's some age on this wine. No other observation, no sediments, no bubbles, nothing like that. Cool. Let's get to the nose. I just fucking love this wine. Alright, so this is where we talk about this. This wine is sound, right? There's nothing wrong with this wine. I think this is exactly how the producer, how Nicolas intended this wine to be. But is this wine clean, right? And I would say no, right? Like it's got some elevated Brett, which is short for Brettanomyces, which is a type of strain of yeast that, I mean, if you're a beer drinker, Brett IPA is a very popular thing. It exists in open air, but it's a different strain of yeast. So when Brett gets introduced into wine, beer, or anything like that, it gives off this very unique, particular smell and flavor that I can only describe to me as horse's ass. It's like, imagine if you're on horseback riding and like taking the saddle off and then like smelling the back of that saddle, that musty, kind of horsey, farmyardy kind of thing. That's Brett. And to me, there's definitely a touch of Brett here. So there's some elevated thing. And this is where we talk about that fault thing. So is that a fault, right? Again, I have a different opinion about fault. Some people, it's about one, intention of the winemaker, but also two, about kind of a personal tolerance for it. If you believe that, if so strong for you that it interferes with all the other things in the wine, then yeah, sure, that wine is faulty. What I'm saying is, I think fault is much more subjective than it is what the wine world wants us to think, that there's an objective term for fault. Because, for example, I'll give you an example. This amount of Brett that you're getting in this wine, some of you may be thinking, oh my God, what's wrong with this wine? This is like, smells like horse's ass, or it smells like farmyard, it smells like manure. But this amount of Brett, had you smelled this in Rhone, Côte de Rhone, Southern Rhone, even Northern Rhone, Côte Rôtie, Cornas, some old OG Bordeaux, you would think, oh my God, of course, this is exactly what Bordeaux smells like. This is exactly what Rhone smells like. And so, yeah, in those regions, right, they're like, oh, I expect it. It's almost, or in Tuscany, right, in Chianti, if you smell that, you would say, oh my God, this is exactly what you would want from Chianti, what you want from Rhone, what you want from Bordeaux. But here, because we're in Beaujolais, right, or had you gotten this in, I don't know, in Jura, like, would you look at that and be like, oh, that's faulty because it's not supposed to be there? Yet, if that same amount existed in Rhone or Bordeaux or Chianti, in Tuscany, you would say, oh, that's the telltale mark. So to me, it's not as clear cut as Brett, at this amount, then it is completely a fault. To me, it's all about kind of the level of it. If there's so much Brett present here that it blocked me, interfered my experience of experiencing fruit and other things about the wine, then I would say, yeah, perhaps there's an argument to be said about this wine is faulty. But at this level, I think it just gives the wine kind of a personality and character. I still smell the fruit. I still smell all the other things, even when I'm tasting it. The bread doesn't block everything. So to me, it's an addition, not a subtraction or a complete blockage of everything else. So I'm gonna say this wine is sound, not faulty, but it is not clean. There's definitely some bread here. And there's certain, and this is what I meant by saying there's a Nicolas Chemarin touch in all of his wines, is this. There's just like rusticity. You know that this wine is not made in a squeaky clean, stainless steel filled, like a lab setting, right? You know that this was made in somebody's garage with their hands, and like it's a real artisanal product that you can tell. It's like the way I talk about it, I don't know if the feralness is a word, but to me his wines are feral. It's just like a wild and alive, and sometimes feels a little dangerous, and it's like, it's like a farmer boy charm. It's like it's rustic yet expressive and charming. But anyways, so I just wanted to point that out, that what you're smelling here, whether that's putting you off or not, that is essentially bread. But now that moving beyond bread, like right here, I'm selling it like, what is that, 3 inches? So I'm gonna call this medium plus intense aromas of, and to me, it's got a hallmark of all what you want or what you smell from Morgon or Beaujolais, that kind of has these deeper base notes. So violet, blackberry, right? Black cherry, black plum. To me, this is much more black fruit driven than it is red fruit driven. The fruit character here is a fresh and ripe, but also there's a touch of like a dried fruit coming here too. Like I get a little bit of like a prunes starting to come in, and all that is probably the function of tertiary that's coming in. Again, 8 years in the bottle, but okay, it's mostly still very fresh, very ripe, kind of violet, blackberry, black cherry, black plum, that kind of wrap. There's also a touch of high toned fruit here too. Like I get some of that, like the black. I used this last week as well, but like the black candy in a Jolly Rancher, like hard candy thing. There's some of that here as well, but this wine is we haven't gone to it's just semi-carbonic, so it's not gonna be super bright and poppy. So the fact that you get just touch of a high tone, not like a high tone all over, makes sense. Nothing herbal or green for me here. The savory here does not come from like the greenness. To me, there's a little bit of spice here. Yeah, like a touch or two of like a turn or two of like a pepper, and then there's some rockiness for sure. There's some like wet rock coming through here, and then tertiary starting to come through. I definitely get Brett's influence, right? All that like horse's ass, leather, farmyard that I mentioned. But what I mean by like other savory tertiary is like I get something meaty and gamey here. Maybe some tobacco leaves as well, but yeah. So it's not like a fresh green, freshly cut grass, but it's more of like a pipe tobacco, a little bit of game, the gaminess, a little meaty, all of that start to come in, and that's basically the tertiary start to kick in here, which is really beautiful. Like it's still very much, I would still say this is like 90%, 95% primary, but there's like 5% just the layer of these kind of tertiary starting to peek through, which is really, really fun and cool. All right, let's get to tasting it. Woo! Oh, this one is so good. First of all, this one is dry, bone dry, a lot of fruit, very generous with fruit, right? Even beyond that bread, like there's just a ton of fruit here. Really good farming. This one is dry, good acid. Let me taste it one more time. Good acid. I'm still gonna call this medium, but I just want to say it's like pushing up against a medium plus. It's the like high end of medium, lower end of medium plus. Definitely just want to know that there's some elevated level of acid here. Still not quite enough for me to get the medium plus, but yeah, it's good. That like solid acid backbone. Definitely some tannin. I definitely feel it all around my mouth. Again, like the acid, I would probably still call this medium, but definitely bordering on medium plus. Tannin feels very, very noticeable here. And the fact that this wine is 8 years old and tannin seems that noticeable tells me it's still got, and then with the acid, it's still got a ton of a life left in this thing. But tannin feels also that the character of the tannin just feels a little more rustic and chewy, rather than really fine grained. And earlier, if you remember from the production, this one goes to 20 days of fermentation maceration in concrete. So this spends a little more time on the skins, like 5 more days than it did in last week's wine. So again, all the stems, all the skins, and all those things makes sense that it's starting to pull out some of the tannin, that it'll be more tannic. Not to mention that this is Morgon, so tends to be more tannic. All right, let's see. Alcohol, I'm gonna call this, I don't know, 12.5, 13. Feels pretty right down the middle. Yeah, 13%. So that's medium. Body. That's some weight. What's up? Yeah, I'm gonna call this about medium. Yeah, all that little bit of the barrel aging it got rounds it up, gives it a little more body. Yeah, I'm gonna call that medium. And flavor intensity. We don't have to talk about mousse flavor intensity. I'm still gonna call this medium plus. None of these flavors. I mean, to me, this one is very expressive. There's nothing here that's shy. Everything is really coming in, but everything is very, very harmonious and balanced, which I love. And the flavor characteristics. I mean, I'm confirming everything that I smelled on the nose, right? Like, I get that bread, but I get first and foremost, I get all that fruit, right? Like black violet, blackberry, black cherry, black plum, fresh and ripe, but also a touch of dry fruit coming in, a little bit of a high tone, a little peppery. The minerality, I get a lot. I guess I actually get more minerality on the palate than I do on the nose. But it's also that, like, all that tertiary coming in, all that gaminess, wild meat, some tobacco leaves, yeah, all of that coming in towards the end. So yeah, it starts out with this like a fresh fruit, and then all the bready kind of leather horse's ass kind of mixes in, and then I started hitting all the like kind of tertiaries of all the game, meat, the turnip pepper, and the minerality kind of finishes all along. So kind of like a bit of an evolving finish. There's many different kind of things that are happening here. I need length. Keep scoring. Okay, here's a tertiary all coming in now. Yeah, I mean, it's still good. I still got that like leather. Yeah, I'm gonna call this medium plus. If not, I mean, it's pushing up against long, honestly. The length. The song goes on for a while. So yeah, I'm gonna call this about medium plus to long finish. I don't want to go. Yeah, I wouldn't call it too long, but definitely pushing up against long, but definitely a minimum medium plus here. All right, so let's talk about it. How good is this wine? Is this wine balanced? I think so. I mean, you may argue if you say that bread really takes everything over. Only thing I smell is the horse's ass. That's debatable. There's argument to be made there for sure. Especially if you're really sensitive to bread. I get that. But to me, bread here is not overpowering. It's just a character builder, like I said. There's a layer of it. It adds personality. It adds this rusticity to the wine, feralness, feral nature of the wine, which I really appreciate and like. But yeah, so to me, this wine is balanced. Intensity, we call medium plus on the nose, medium plus on the palate, right? Complexity, we had violet, black plum, black cherry, all the black fruits. Fresh, ripe, but also a little dried out, also high tone, some minerality, pepper, and then we got all the tertiary things like, and all the bread influence, right? Like leather, farmyard, meat, game, some tobacco is peeking through. So I say complexity wise, this is there's a lot going on here. So I'm gonna call that medium plus, and then the length, we called it medium plus to long. So we're seeing balanced, medium plus intensity, medium plus complexity, medium plus to long length is basically what we got. So this wine, at minimum, I'll say if you take the average of all of that, we're landing somewhere between medium plus and pronounced, maybe closer to medium plus. So I'll say at minimum, this one is very good, and that's what I'm going to call this wine. This is very good. But I have said this wine is on its way to becoming outstanding. With a bit more aging on this wine, with all this intense primary, what I call medium plus intense primary fruit, still 95% of it is primary, right? All of that fruit turning into more tertiary flavors, adding into even more complexity, so that as that complexity becomes pronounced or high complexity, I think this is going to push it into a outstanding category. But as of right now, I'll call this solidly in a very good wine category, and then on its way to becoming an outstanding wine. Would I age this wine? I say drink this now. I think this wine is drinking beautifully. I think it's at a perfect. It's got a lot of freshness. The tertiary start to come in. I think it's drinking beautifully. So drink this now. And this wine already has 8 years on it. But given how fresh it is, given how most of the fruits are still primary, I'd say this one probably has, I don't know. It's got medium plus, somewhere between medium to medium plus, both acid and tannin, still holding onto a lot of tannin. So it's got a very solid backbone, got a ton of primary fruits still, medium plus intense fruit, so intensity and the fruit flavors. It's continue to get even more complex. So I think it's a great wine for aging potential, and I would say, I don't know, give it another 5 years. I think in 5 years, maybe that balance will be 80% primary, 30% tertiary, maybe 70, 30, but who knows? But I think it can easily go for another 5 years. So I'll say come back, get a few more these bottles and lay it down, and come back to it and check it out in 3 to 5 years. And then it can probably go longer, but yeah, I think it has no problem aging for the next 5 years. Maybe 5 to 8 years, it would be that kind of like the perfect, half primary, half tertiary, then like the perfect pinnacle of aging. But as of right now, this can age easily for another 5, I would say. All right. And if you want to play this game, pause the video now. But how much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much do you think this is how much would you be happy paying for this on a retail shelf? And the answer is $30. Yeah, $30. We call this almost outstanding wine. It's on its way to becoming an outstanding wine, somewhere between very good and outstanding, with 8 years of age already. It's got 5 more years to go at least, and it's $30. So I would say this is one hell of a deal, if you ask me. And the truth is, and I'll be honest, another reason why I personally, honestly, I love his wines, but another reason why I've probably featured Nicolas Chemarin every year is because his price hasn't really changed at all. I don't know if it's a function of the producer just not changing his price, or the importer, which is a wine tradition, which is our local importer, direct importer out of Falls Church. They're the sole importer of this wine for the entire US. Because they, import and self-distribute themselves, they have much more margin and cushion, and so that maybe they're just hitting, absorbing the costs over the years and don't want to increase the price. But whatever the case may be, the fact that 2017 Morgon of this quality is running at $30 is fantastic. It's phenomenal. So this is the bottle. This is a kind of the wine that I would argue that you should buy more of. Actually, kind of stock up on it and just sit on it. This will continue to get better, continue to get more complex, and at a reasonable price for $30 a bottle in a retail. And of course, in Case Club, you get cheaper you'll get even cheaper if you get more of it. But yeah, so that's what I was saying. All right, well, happy Friday, y'all. If you have any questions or comments, you know where to find me. But till then, toodle. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Okay, bye.